Hey, how you doing? I just want to talk about prophecies and how people predicted the end times and the way the future was headed for mankind and where we were going to end up. And in the year 2000, we were all believing in Nostradamus' prediction that the world was going to end at that time in 1999, and all the banks were going to shut down and like computers would shut down and everything would reset then, and there would be catastrophes and that were involved. But in that time, man was awakened to a new world order when they hit the towers, and it pretty much took away, everybody was under surveillance, and it wasn't really the end of like the world that was happening around in the world. It was more like a spiritual awakening and a conscious awakening, and that were all under watch by this all-seeing eye, and that's sort of how the new world began, and they sort of stopped all the wheels in motion from turning around, and they stopped the world from ending, so to speak, and they managed to prolong the inevitable in what we're living through now. And then we started to follow the Mayans and the Aztecs about 2012, and then everybody was saying, it's really 2012 that we're trying to tell us. These ancient Mayans and the prophets were trying to tell us, all these Sikhs and foreseers and psychics, and they were all saying that in 2012 it was going to end. And they were talking about polar shifts and solar flares and all kinds of catastrophe, and that was going to fall on mankind then. And then we waited for it, and it didn't happen. And what mankind was really going through is more a conscious awakening again. It was more a spiritual awakening in 2012 again, where we were more conscious with Y2K and things that were happening in the world, and our consciousness levels sort of shifted in 2012 to the New World Order that we're seeing today, which was, we're pretty much more under control in some sort of way. In 2012, it's like more about control as well. So you have the year 2000 where they hit the towers and Nostradamus' prediction and all the computers collapsing, and it was a more form of conscious control back then. And in 2012, the ancient minds predicted the end as well. And again, it was more about control and controlling people's consciousness on a whole new level. And were introduced to AI and computers, simulations at that point. And it was all about control. And people were talking about 2020, there was going to be this solar flare and some sort of end happening as well. And it was when we saw all around us what was happening in 2020, how everyone was in panic because of you know what. Again, it was more about controlling humanity and further like oppressing us and taking away our freedoms as individuals. And it's not so more about the world ending. It's more about mankind ending as human beings, and our consciousness and how we're controlled by society, everything around us. And slowly our consciousnesses are being taken away from us, and we're all being manipulated on some level. And I believe the further we go into this future together, slowly we're losing our consciousness. We're being controlled further. And, they're breeding fear into us, and they're using all these psychological tactics to breed fear and to control us further in what they're doing in the world today. And we're seeing like disasters happening on a small level. And then we're also seeing everything being controlled on a much larger level. And these end times that we're living in is sort of the complete takeover of mankind and where we're headed as people. And it's more likely that people are going to end up in the Matrix, like in the Matrix movie, where Neo is trying to free people from the machines. And that seems to be the way humanity is going and evolving with consciousness. We're being trapped inside machines, and we're all living in some sort of simulation. And that will be the end for humanity, and it'll be the transhumanism, and you know the way people are. They'll be like in a computer system, in a simulation, and it'll be the end of like the real world, and we'll all be living inside this matrix instead of like living in a real world. It'll all be artificial, and everything will be simulated. And like what Facebook guy's doing, he's created like a metaverse, and we'll all be living inside this matrix metaverse, what Mark Zuckerberg's basically doing. And but we'll be doing it like on a matrix level, and we'll all be stuck inside these machines. And that's possibly where humanity is going. Like, it will be the end of the real world, and we'll all be living inside this simulation, and we won't know what's happening to us on the outside. And we'll all be tricked in this simulation to what we're really doing, and they're only distracting us from seeing the truth, what's happening in reality. But we'll all be living in this illusion. And the deeper we go, every time they predict catastrophes, you've got to see it as man's consciousness and where man's consciousness is going, and will be further controlled. It's just another form of mental control. And that's how they're sort of doing it, is they're programming us, and they're predicting the end of the world and asteroids and earthquakes and polar shifts. But all that means is controlling our consciousness as people and putting us inside a simulation and a matrix type system. And that's the way I think the world is sort of going in the end times, and all the predictions from the prophets and the psychics that foresaw all these things. And yeah, it's all about control. And with that being said, take care.